Good. I almost said good morning. Good evening, everybody. It's captive audience once again with Don Anderson and Tired of Winning, otherwise known as Sunny Danforth. Say
No,
good evening.
not tired of winning.
Not tired of winning. Let me
Not
make sure I get that
tired of winning.
right. Very much not tired of winning. I hope you're all having a good evening. And for your visual pleasure, Sunny has displayed a photo of our new first lady. Is that not a great thing?
That is, she's just pure class. This is a woman of pure class, and this is a business power shot. This is not, this is her, Melania, our first lady's official photo. And this to me resonates as all business. This is not the glamorous first lady that you got that we had as our first in the first term. And she sees what's what. And I went, yeah, I like this picture.
Well, we haven't had a glamorous one in the last one either, though. So, to be fair,
No, 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 we did not. And she's just so beautiful and so intelligent. I wish we had her as a guest, but no, not on Captive Audience, not yet.
yeah, I had high hopes there for a moment, Sonny, but I just don't think our ratings are quite that high yet.
No, they're not.
Maybe someday, maybe someday. But hey, I was sitting and I was listening to. We'll get to all of this. The Laken Riley speech that President Trump gave earlier today, which was really touching, and we'll come around to that in a moment. But I just couldn't help but reflect on being old enough to remember the Carter administration and the Biden administration, and the parallels are just amazing. And I remember thinking way back then that essentially there's three things you have to get right or get wrong. You have to get right to get elected. You have to get wrong to not get elected. And they are basically, the economy. So you got to have inflation, interest rates, and unemployment under control. If you have those under control, you're probably going to get reelected. If you don't, there's about 90% chance that you're not. And that's what happened in the Carter administration. That's exactly what happened here. They destroyed that one. The second one, you got to have foreign policy. If your foreign policy is a train wreck, that's going to really be difficult. And you look at what the Carter administration had with the hostages and the helicopter crashing in the desert. We all remember what a nightmare that was. And you look at the what we had with President Biden just recently. With I hate to use the word president before his name, but I guess I have to. With the disastrous escape from Afghanistan, we got two theater level conflicts going on at the same time. Both in the Ukraine and the Middle East, either one of those could blow into a World War III. It's unbelievable, but that's what we got. You can't get reelected with that. And then finally, you have the social side of things. We got a social nightmare. Whether you're talking about the transgender issue, women being able to use restrooms without grown men in there, women can't have their own sports, the military being turned into a social platform rather than the fighting force. You know, on those three things, you just can't get reelected doing that unless you rig the thing. And that's why we got what we got. And it's awfully great to have a real first lady and a real first man, MAN man, one who can speak without the use of a teleprompter is just an amazing thing. So there's my opening. And if I could add one other thing, and this one I had to talk about the Davos thing. So I think it was last week, the World Economic Forum. Trump went, or he didn't actually go. I think he gave that via Zoom call. But essentially, they had that talk, which was an amazing talk to hear if you haven't heard it. But I was listening to an economist, William Davis Hanson, speak about the economics of using the principles that the World Economic Forum and what the impact that has been on European Union. So 25 years ago, in terms of gross national product, the EU and the United States essentially had the same GNP. Now they are, let's get this number, the GDP in the EU is one half of that of the United States. I mean, half. They've literally 50%, and we have been going exactly gangbusters the last 4 years. So to hear that
No.
it's actually half is like horrendous. That's what happens when you implement the principles of the smart people. Uh, they look at us as the lumpen proletariat, the deplorables. That's exactly what they think. They want to govern everything and tell everybody what to do. You do what they say, and that's what you get. And Canada is essentially the same boat. I mean, their GDP is like horrible. I think it's something like 10 times income now to buy a home. for Canadians. It's just absolutely an impossible situation because they follow those principles. So I'll stop. I used up a lot of oxygen just then, but there's my opening thoughts.
Well, I watched some of that World Economic Forum, and I did see Trump's speech there, but it wasn't just Trump. Victor Orban, Malay from Argentina, the gal, I can't think of her name. I want to say Germany.
There's
And
one,
it,
the Italian, the Milieu, I think it is.
yes, yes,
Right.
there you go, the Italian.
Mhm.
And this is the thing. They're all going, you know what? We're not doing this. We're not doing this. And to have Trump cut the payments, pull us out,
Mhm.
for me, that's the country heading in the right direction because we are a sovereign nation. I'm not going to worry about the rest of the world. We have to though. But for this, we're a sovereign nation. And through the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization, there has been things signed or talked about being signed that is going to give some power to other countries or these organizations, and whoever's running them over the United States. Like, hell no. It's not just no for me, it's hell no. And I think I've heard a lot of Americans through social media are feeling that way as well. And so I'm just happy with where we're at. In fact, I cannot stop grinning because, and I'm really not tired of winning with everything that Trump is doing with his appointments, how things are going, what they're pulling out. It's like, oh my gosh, I wake up to go see what he's done now.
Yeah, it truly is amazing. Every time you wake up, it's something new, it's something fantastic, and it just makes you smile. Like the most recent one, I understand that the judge has reversed it, but I think that's temporary personally, and that is the freeze on the Office of Management and Budget. So the freeze in terms of their ability to spend. If you're going to stop the deep state, you've got to cut off the money, and I think that's just been brilliant. And then offering early departure for all these federal employees and forcing them back to work. 92% of them have been quote unquote working from home. And if you believe they're all working from home, then I got some oceanfront property for you in Nebraska because they're
Well,
not working. They're not working when they're in the office.
I'm
So,
glad they're calling these people back into the office, and and now going to the OMB, his freeze, they've rescinded that thing now, and so the OMB rescinded their statement of the freeze. So because of what the judge did, even though that was going to be a temporary freeze that was going to expire on Monday, I was reading a little bit about it, and then saw that they had pulled it. People, we need to cut the waste. I'm glad they're offering, and boy, do you hear about some of the Democrat talking heads on, oh my gosh, he's offering them retirement. He can't do that. Well, yes, he can. There's a certain limit of how much the severance package, he's limited in that. And he even said so. Well, I'm limited on what I can offer you without Congress approving more. And I think more people need to, and I hope a lot of people take it actually.
yeah, well, I think he's given them something like what I think it's till February 8th or something. You can quit and then get 8 months severance. Because if you don't quit, and then they're going to do this review around whether your job is a necessary one or not,
Yeah.
then you get fired. You got nothing. I think a huge percentage of them are going to take that. Plus, if you've been working on the side with a second job, which a huge percentage of them have been doing, which is against the law, they're going to investigate that. So if you are doing that, it's better to take the money and leave now rather than get investigated later and wind up having to pay it all back or going to jail. I think they're going to be making that calculus. And if a whole squadron of these people leave, that's a great thing because we all know it's bloated, like beyond belief bloated.
Yes, it
Here's
is.
a couple of things he brought up in his talk tonight. So I watched the talk tonight on the his signing of the Laken Riley legislation, which we'll get to in a moment. And some of the things he talked about were um, some of the waste. For example, in Gaza, we've we've spent $50 million to buy condoms for Hamas. Now, have you heard that? $50 million to buy condoms for Hamas. Now, I'm not sure why we'd be doing that, but they took the condoms and then turned them into balloons that they could use as weapons to drop bombs on us. I mean, our government's doing that. That's
Yeah.
how crazy it is. 181 million in DEI training. That's been cut. 40 million from the World Health Organization, which, if there ever was a misnomer in terms of name, that's
Oh,
it.
yes.
45 million in diversity program, and get this, in Burma. 45 million in diversity training for people, citizens of Burma. Now, I wonder where that's going.
And Burma is an absolute dictator.
Right, right. Yeah,
This
it's
is
you can't dream up.
wow. I didn't know about that one.
You cannot. I think the average citizen would just be completely blown out of the water by the amount of just how much their tax dollars are being completely wasted. And what's worse, being weaponized and used against us, which is happening.
Yeah, we've absolutely been funding our own demise. And Biden the last, since they lost the election, has just been giving money out by the billions like monopoly money. And it's scary. And I hope Trump is able to, and the different departments are able to claw some of that back and stop some of that. In fact, one great thing that I heard Trump did yesterday, I think it was yesterday, he said there was Israel had paid for arms and goods, and they had paid for them, and Biden, they never shipped them. So he says, okay, they've already paid for them, because one of the reporters says, well, how come you're shipping those off? He says, because they've paid for them. They bought and paid for them. So you've got to deliver the goods. And, these are things that have been held up, of course, so that to hold Israel back, in my opinion. I'm not far from an expert on any of this, but
Well, we're dealing with the previous administration was just utterly, completely lawless, and without principle. Um, which takes me back to the talk tonight that he gave at the signing of the Lincoln Riley legislation. You know, the thing about that was the humanizing aspect of that, because not only was Lincoln Riley's family there, and the mom came and gave a talk, a tearful talk, um, but you also had the families of a whole ton of other people who'd been murdered by illegal immigrants. And Trump, started naming them, during that talk. And there was this whole humanizing aspect of that. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to sit there and realize these are people who had to get that phone call. Um, I can't imagine getting that phone call. And then to realize it was so unnecessary, so avoidable. I mean, it's bad enough if you have a family member, a spouse, or a kid, killed by a criminal inside our own country, but one that came from outside our country, one that was apprehended inside our country several times, one that our own government flew from New York City, a sanctuary city,
yeah.
after they let him out of prison, flew him to Atlanta, and then let him out of jail so you can go rape and kill your daughter. I mean, that's next level. And I honestly, that would be a really tough pill to swallow. Um, and then have a president who never even acknowledged it, never called you, nothing.
Never. Yeah.
Um,
We don't treat people like that here in America. We're a very compassionate country. Not all countries are. And I say that because I've been in countries, I've watched an automobile accident happen, and the locals go and starts robbing the people that are in the accident. But I've never seen that in our country. We go aid people, and we're helping them. Their stuff is their stuff. And so not all
but,
countries are compassionate like that.
but
It's
I tell you,
get what you
yeah,
can.
I think there's something uniquely different about the left wing elite that we have now that we've never experienced before. And I'll give you kind of an anecdotal story that I think will help illustrate that. So, a family member used to be in the police back in the late 60s, early 70s, and he had an opportunity to escort uh, RFK when he came to town to do their election swing.
Hmm.
And then he had an opportunity to escort the Nixon team when they came to town to campaign. And the difference was absolutely stark in terms of the way they treated the police. I mean, the Kennedy, that administration, the Klan were completely rude, completely nasty, talked down to them, said they didn't need any police, didn't want any police around. Um, and the Nixon people were like completely friendly, treated them like with equals, give them everything they needed to do their job, talk to them like they were equals, the whole nine. And I think what we've seen is on the left, they think of citizens as subjects, people to be told what to do, really human guinea pigs, if you get down to it. We'll come back to that later. And on the Republican side or the conservative side, generally speaking, we're citizens, not subjects, and and respond, and they are therefore they work for and are responsive to the citizenry, and that I think has increased exponentially, that mindset on the left over the last 40 years. I mean, you look at how they've behaved.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I agree with that. I want to go back to the Laken Riley Act that was signed, because this is a big deal. That it's a requirement. It's not you may. The act requires DHS to detain any foreign national who's charged with a crime, charged, not convicted, charged with a crime. Essentially, burglary, theft, larceny, small stuff, shoplifting, or assault. And I'm glad that they put some of these, what you might call them lesser crimes, in, because you have the sanctuary cities and sanctuary states like California's going, oh yeah, as long as you haven't stole more than $1,000, you're good to go. Just come in and take what you want, walk out the door. So I think that is to help with that. Assault with a law enforcement officer, or any crime that results in death or serious bodily injury to another person, even if that person has been granted bail from the state detention by a court. So that person's being detained, period. And that is now law of the land. I'm very happy.
Yeah, that is just that you had to make this a law is stunning. By the way, I mean,
Yes.
this should be like
No
basic common
kidding.
sense, um, total common sense. But we know the left doesn't have any total common sense, so they always have to find
No.
like getting punched in the face. That's just how it works.
And if you were watching the RFK's Junior's hearing today, you would see the left has no common sense. I mean, some of the things, I'll tell you, Bernie Sanders had a meltdown over little babies' onesies. It's like, oh my gosh, are you going to make them take this down? Because a little baby's onesie said, unvaxxed and unafraid, and he says, you founded this company. Are you gonna? And Bobby Kennedy goes, I'm not in charge there. I've resigned. So it's like he was having such a meltdown over onesies. Now there's like memes all over X,
Well,
about it.
yeah. Well, I give you props
And
because I was.
Pocahontas.
Oh my goodness! I listened to like 5 minutes of it. I couldn't take it. I just switched channels. I don't know how people can sit there and listen to it. It's
Well,
performance.
I watched it
It's
so you
performance.
didn't have to, Don.
Thank you.
And I got my coffee this morning. My mom and I got up, and we watched it. It started at 7. I thought it started at 6.
Uh-huh.
And sat, and I wanted to just, it's so good to watch stuff live and not have somebody interpret for you what
Mhm.
was said and only pull out some highlights and edit it down. So my mom and I watched the whole dang thing, and It was disgusting the Democrats. But I'll tell you, Bobby Kennedy, he did good.
Hmm.
I thought he did well. And Megyn Kelly, you could see her over his shoulder,
Hmm.
and she's behind his wife.
Uh-huh.
And I'll tell you, it was during Bernie Sanders that she was during that whole onesie thing that she's just cracking up, like going, "Oh my gosh," you know.
It's called freedom of speech. You might hear things that you disagree with. Shocking. You
Yes,
know, and I think most of the audience here can probably are old enough to remember back. I think it was the '70s when the Nazis were marching in Chicago, um, and it was pretty much understood then. I mean, the press didn't like it, and people didn't like it, but you
yeah,
know what? They have a right to. We were proud of the fact that you get to do that here, and nobody had a problem with that. They had a problem with what they were saying, but nobody had a problem with the fact that they got to march. So I think the Nazis marched, the Ku Klux Klan marched.
yes, they
Good
did.
on you. As my mother said, let them get an opportunity, quote unquote, to show their ass. And
Right,
that's what you want.
right. And
Let
so,
let
you
them see
know,
how
and
crazy you are.
this is where you're exactly right. This is freedom of speech, and the senators can. They had 5 minutes. One guy took 9 minutes. You know, the chairman was very generous, and finally, they were down to the last couple of senators. He goes, "You guys have to." In fact, it was, oh my gosh, Oregon,
Oh,
Oregon
I heard
Senator
Wyden was the
Wyden
worst.
was awful. And he says, I would like another round of questioning. And the chairman said, we're not going to do another round, but I will give you another 5 minutes. So then he took 1 minute and shared 1 minute. Somebody else got a minute. Somebody else got a minute. And they said, we have to shut this down because we have to go vote. And so there was a vote on the floor. So they had to get out of there. And
Well,
but I thought Kennedy did well, and I believe tomorrow he has another round. He's going to have, I think, 2 rounds of questioning.
as near as you
Um,
can tell, what's the biggest heartburn for them? I keep hearing that the ones they hate the most are Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, and one other guy. But those two, they
Cash
just seem
Patel.
right. They have the hardest time. So, what is it with RFK that makes him the nuttiest in your mind, based on what you've heard?
Well, they really tried to paint him as anti-vax,
Okay.
and he says, "I'm not anti-vax."
Hmm.
And it's because of, like, if you're on X today, they're going, oh yeah, Pocahontas, let's see, in her state. And somebody had posted how much pharmaceutical industry is in her state. And so the senators are getting a lot of money from pharmaceuticals.
Hmm.
So she did a very pointed attack on him. And
Hmm.
it's to me, I go, wow, they get so heated and angry. Well, I think they're trying to trigger him or whoever's in front of them, right?
Yeah.
But he got hot. He actually had quite a hot interchange with her,
Hmm. Yeah.
and so I think it's because of their money. I mean, they're fighting for what he could do in the position of being in the head.
Hmm.
And he says, let's just have the science. He says, I'm about the science. And
Hmm.
they're going, well, here's a whole study that vaccines are all safe. Well, that's junk science, quite frankly,
Right. Right.
and they inserted that into the record.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, they're part of it is protecting the donor base.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure.
you cannot argue with, we spend so much on healthcare. And he made a statement similar to this. I'm totally paraphrasing, that you can't argue that we spend so much on healthcare and we're the unhealthiest in the world.
Oh.
Near where we are. We're not um, taking care of people. We're trying just masking what's wrong with them, and instead he talked explicitly in detail about ingredients. He says, okay, Fruit Loops, it's got this dye, that dye, that dye, And the
Mhm.
Fruit Loops that's made in Europe doesn't have any of that. The same manufacturer makes the same product, and one might have 17 ingredients that's made in the United States, and over in Europe it has 3 ingredients.
Mhm.
And it is about having our food healthy. And why do we allow it? Why does the so-called Food and Drug Administration, that's supposed to be looking out for us, allow that to happen?
Sure.
And so, I think I look forward to him ripping the Band-Aid off and
Mhm.
helping to educate people about being label readers. But let's get the poisons. Truly, when
Mhm.
they say, because it wasn't until it was looking like he is going to get confirmed
Mhm.
that the FDA said, you know what, we got to get rid of red five, dye number 5.
Right, right, sure.
I
So
mean,
why now?
hello? Hello? It's been out of the makeup and cosmetic industry for like 25, 30 years, but it's
Right.
still in our food.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's not
That
the
was
only thing.
shocking.
I mean, hey, look, you could say that Americans have gotten lazier and all this stuff over the last 20 or 30 years, but I'm beginning to suspect it's more than just that in terms of why we've gotten fatter. I don't think the food we're eating now is the same as it was 20 or 30 years ago, and I think that's another thing they're scared of. So the
Yes.
food industry's been flying under the radar. I mean, the tobacco industry took all the hits, but it's time for the food industry to be put under the same microscope that the tobacco industry got put under. Um, and the same thing goes for the drugs. I mean, we're taking all these drugs. I think the average American is like sucking down something like 6 to 8 drugs.
Yeah.
And what is the benefit of that? There's no way you can study the impact of having 6 to 8 different drugs. Those, when they are studied, they're studied, by
One at a
themselves.
time. That's
Right, one at
exactly
a time.
right.
You're not studied 6, 8 of the time. You have no idea what those drugs. You don't even know which drug is doing what. But we're spending a fortune on this stuff, and we've got not getting any benefit in terms of life expectancy. In fact, I saw something the other day, it was shocking. We're not. I don't even think we're in the top 5 in terms of life expectancy anymore.
Mm-mm.
Um, what
No.
the what the heck is that about?
Yeah. And so, it's all about that. It's about the pharmaceutical industry. It's about our food. And he touched a little bit on our soil health.
Okay.
He says we're our soil health and the farming practices, because there are farming practices that enrich the soil, and there's farming practices that strip it. And he touched a tad on some of that. So he held himself very, very well. And through Trump's second term and joining up with him, it's going to help educate more people. We talked about the SNAP program and what's being served in schools. Why are we feeding chemicals to the kids?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
yeah, why is the federal government paying for Coca-Cola and Pepsi as a part of the SNAP program, and
right?
ice cream and cookies and Cheerios and corn and
Yeah.
Froot Loops, all of that stuff? That's another. I think we talked about that in one of our other ones, but
Yes.
that's incredible. It's
Yeah.
covering just junk. It's unbelievable.
So that's a big department, and that's a lot there. So I think that's why they're fighting, and that's why the senators get nasty with them.
Oh, that
And
makes
so
sense.
Cash Patel is going to be that way. Tulsi Gabbard's going to be that way. Yeah, it's
Too
it's
much
not
money in one.
nice.
Anytime you put too much money in one spot, boy, you get a bunch of lefties coming like flies to you know what.
Yes.
You know, reduce the size of the dung pile. That's the only way you get rid of the flies.
Yeah, and so tomorrow is Tulsi Gabbard and Cash Patel. That'll be interesting
Mhm.
to see. And they really don't want Cash as the head of the FBI. And he is a former prosecutor. He's worked in the department,
Mhm.
and I think that's what you want.
Boy,
And today I have to tell you, I was watching while I was making dinner. Yes, I made dinner before the program. And I haven't eaten yet, but I made it for the family. And they were talking about showing a picture. Who do you want, JFK, RFK Jr., or the guy in the dress?
Uh-huh.
Whatever his. And I'm glad I've remembered. I have forgotten his name because
Yeah.
you want the guy in the dress. You
Mhm.
know, it's like no, America. I think we're cutting off the mental health issues. We're going to. We're eliminating that, right?
And I love the fact that we have a president that's like, let's not dance around the issue. Let's just tell people, right between the eyes, these people have a mental disorder. And I love the way he said that with they're stripping them all out of the military, because
Yes.
just from a medical standpoint, if you're in the middle of going through some kind of a transgender surgery, you're not ready. We need to have people have a high level of military readiness. So if you're in the middle of having all these procedures done, it takes 8 months to a year and a half to recover from that stuff. Just from that perspective, you're not ready to go to war. You're just not. You shouldn't be in the military in the first place. We need to go right back to the don't ask, don't tell. That's where that needs to sit. If you feel like you need to wear a dress or whatever, then you're not fit for the military. Just doesn't. You're just not a fit.
Yeah, and I mean, we used to call them cross dressers. That's what they were, cross
Yeah.
dressers, and they want to normalize that out in society, and that's why they've gone after the kids and whatnot, and which I find absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
And frankly, what you do with your private life as an adult, okay, but
Mhm.
I lose the respect as I don't know. It's mental health. It is a mental health issue. It is not I don't believe normal, whatever, healthy normal,
And
healthy
what's
normal.
appalling about this is they made every effort to prevent you from being able to say that.
Yes.
You can do what you want, but I got to say what I want. I'm not going to be rude and nasty, but if you ask me, I'm going to tell you what I think. And that's how we've always run things in this country. It's called freedom of speech. As long as I'm not threatening violence, I can say what I want, and we need to
Well,
keep.
and and Trump said all the pronouns are gone. We're not doing pronouns anymore, thee, them, they, whatever. No, thank you. He also signed an order to defund the schools teaching CRT and promoting going back to his 1776 campaign.
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
is awesome. And
Uh,
and right now the nation's schools have horrible report cards.
Well, one of the things that they've done, and you think about it for a minute, every country in the world, with the exception of this one, has pretty much shared this. They were from the same race, the same ethnicity, the same tribe, and this is the first and only country whose foundational documents basically said uh, we're going to follow this creed, right? We all know what that creed is. The Declaration of Independence is embedded in the Constitution. Um, so we're basing this on sharing the same principles, of freedom. And if you agree to those principles, it doesn't matter what you look like. And this has been a success because we've been able to transmit that to the next generations. One of the things the left is doing and attempting to do is destroy that. Because if you destroy that, you destroy the very fabric which holds us together in the first place. Because we're not held together. You can move to Japan, you'll never be Japanese. You might be a citizen, you'll never be Japanese. You can move to France, you can be French, but you'll never really be French, right? This is the only place where you can come and you can be an American if you raise your right hand and agree to these principles. And what they're looking to do is destroy that, because if they do that, they destroy the country. That's been the project of the left for the last 40 years, and it starts in our school system. And so, what he's doing in terms of eliminating the CRT and all this other nonsense is exactly what needs to be done. If we don't win that battle, these other battles really don't matter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right there. It's Yeah, I was reading some of the comments here. Lori Shaw, keep it private. And look at what Lori Good says. Klinger from MASH. He knew cross dressing was a sign of mental issue. He wanted to get whatever they call it, Section 8 out or whatever they,
Yeah,
you
he was
know,
trying to get discharged.
he was. Yeah, now they're trying to normalize that. And so this is part of, they want the left's um, has been trying to put everybody in a box, and when I remember, and you probably remember it too, Don, let me ask you a question. Don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to do
It's
it.
okay.
How do you identify?
Mhm. How do I identify? Identify as Don Anderson.
As an American or an African
Oh,
American?
as an American first and foremost.
Right. And so I'm seeing on social media more people are going, you know what? I'm not Asian American. I'm not African American. I'm American. I've been here, I'm born here and what? And I think more people, I'm not German American. I'm an American. My heritage is such, but that's, we have to take that back and don't put that label in and speak the truth because we are Americans. And I totally agree with you that those that are coming into our country and immigrating here lawfully, that okay, I'll quit saying that word that. I think that's what Marlene was saying, is when you become a citizen, you're now a citizen. As much as I have people from three different nationalities in my country,
Mhm.
and they two of which are citizens. They're
Mhm.
Americans. And
Yeah.
in their minds, they're Americans. Yes, they're from another country,
Mhm.
but I think we have to stop those labels and encourage people to speak that they're Americans.
Absolutely. And that doesn't mean you give up your culture. I mean, at all. I mean, if you're from Thailand, you have Thai food and all the other things that, that make you Thai.
Sure.
Culturally, that's fine, but you're an American citizen. I think, and forgive me if I told this story before, but it's just one of those foundational stories for me. I was at Independence Hall, probably, and my kids were small. It's probably 20 years ago. So my wife couldn't go because she was dealing with little kids, and so I went by myself. And the docent was excellent that day. And one of the things he did, it was a group of people, probably the average age was around 60. I was a little younger at that time. So I was the younger end of that crowd. But one of the things the docent was saying was about these foundational principles that bind us together to make us completely unique and different from any other nation that's ever been in existence in the history of the world. And then he went on to say, we hold these truths to be self-evident. And then the entire group of 30 people continued that form. That all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Everybody knew it. Everybody in
Yes.
that generation knew it, right? Because we were brought up in a school system. Pretty sure almost everyone in this call is the same way, where you learned that stuff.
Yes.
I mean, my wife had to memorize the Gettysburg Address. I had to memorize the preamble to the Constitution. Didn't know what school you went to, but there are certain things that you just knew. And if you didn't know it by heart, you knew of it. And when you heard it, you knew where it came from. Um,
Yes.
and now, what the left has done over the last 40 years is they've taken that common core, if you will, away from our youth. So now they don't know what binds us together. They don't
Mhm.
know the stories of the Doolittle raid, or or the bombing of Pearl Harbor,
Mhm.
or any of those things. Uh, what happened at the Battle of the Bulge? They don't know any of that stuff, and we need to bring that back. Otherwise, we're going to lose them.
Well, with Trump's order, it is he's taking it back into in this anti-indoctrination order also reinstates the 1776 commission, which was implemented during Trump's previous term but was removed under the executive order of Biden. And so the 1776 Commission published a scholarly report that called for a national renewal of education centered on teaching the U.S. Constitution and Declaration of Independence, and this was to combat a direct response of the 1619 project. So now we are. We're going to get this, and this is what needs to happen. And so as things all get implemented, I think it's our duty to look into the schools and make sure that they are implementing that and have gotten rid of the CRT, and
Oh,
instead of just renaming it something else, because believe me,
mhm.
the left is going to fight that tooth and nail.
But I just had to respond to a comment. I think Haley just had to comment about, you wonder if they even do the Pledge of Allegiance in the schools in Oregon anymore. I guarantee you they don't. And that's another personal experience I had about 5 or 6 years ago. I had a high school kid playing at a high school basketball at Jefferson High School over in Portland, and they did the Star Spangled Banner, and I think maybe myself and three other people. This isn't a full gym. We're standing for it. Everybody else kept talking to each other, kept the hats on, walking around, completely ignored it. I've never seen anything like it in my life, right? That's what the left's trying to do. They're trying to divide us 100%. That's what they're doing. And they've been quite successful at this project, and we need to reverse it. We all knew My Country, Tis of Thee, Sparse, America the Beautiful. You knew all of that stuff. And we need to bring it back, because if we're not bound together by anything. And this whole thing of the color of your skin, or this identity politics stuff,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's your character. When you see somebody, you don't judge who they are based on what they look like. You judge who they are based on their character, like MLK said in this famous speech back in '63. Right? I know you by your character. I don't know nothing about you when I first see you,
Yes.
except what you look like. That's it. Uh, what did Shakespeare say famously? Speak so that I may know you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So thankfully, we've got, that Trump won the election. Thankfully, enough people turned out, and it was a real landslide. He said it has to be too big to rig, and the American people, we delivered on that. And so it's pretty darn awesome with
Which
what
shows
we're
you,
seeing.
and I've always thought we aren't crazy. So in the middle of COVID, I remember, so I used to race bikes. One of my workout things, I ride bike early in the morning. And so I go riding around the neighborhood, and I've done this. I used to travel for work, and so I would ride bike in, Montana, Idaho, Northern California. I've been pretty much been everywhere. All the places that were supposed to be so racist and hating everyone, by the way. And I've run across nothing but wonderful people. I mean, I'm talking to farmers. I stop and ask them questions and how you doing and what are you growing out here. I mean, just having a good old time. The average American citizen is not who the media puts on TV. They're trying to portray us all as crazy and hating each other, when the reality of us, the vast majority of us are not like that. So when they were lying about the polling in this last election, I'm thinking to myself, there is no way these people are going to vote for that woman. I just don't. I just don't see it. And they
Right.
kept saying, "This is no." I just don't think we're all crazy, because I don't see it in my world.
Yeah.
And my world is not a limited world. I'm around lots of different kinds of people, and I just think the majority of people. There's some that are duped for sure, but even
Yeah.
the duped ones aren't crazy. And so it was great to get that affirmed from this election. And that's even amongst a significant percentage of the population that's not getting news sources like the people that are on this call are getting. But they know in their guts, when they see crazy, they know crazy. Um, and of course, it had to come to their doorstep, unfortunately, for them to really get it.
Yeah.
Uh, but they did get it.
Yes. Yes. And I agree. I don't think, there was a hearing in my county, Umatilla County, a few years back. And I don't know, maybe 4 years ago now. And I learned about it very, very late. And the hearing was for the county commissioners to sign a resolution stating that America is inherently racist. And I went, "What? Are
Oh,
you kidding me?" And so actually, they passed it. It wasn't unanimous vote, but they did pass it. And I have since talked to the county commissioner who brought that up, and I said, "Are you kidding me?" But they did it in such a fashion that we're going to still follow the Constitution of the United States. We're not going to give any other somebody, race over another one. And I just went, I can't believe that you even did that. And those types of things, frankly, need to be undone, needs to be rescinded.
see, and here's the thing. Just from a historical perspective, it's like compared to what? See, most people never think, people make these accusations. No one ever says compared to what? Compared to what? I mean, Where is it better, by the way? Because it was so horrible. Why do so many millions keep coming here?
Yeah.
If you ever want to talk about how bad the United States is, when people are having that debate, the simplest thing is where are they going to? They're
Yeah.
not flooding. They're not flooding the African continent. They're not flooding the.
No, they're not.
They're not
People are
flooding
killing,
China.
willing to die to get to this country.
Yes, they're
If
not.
it's so damn racist, why would they be doing that?
Why are they coming here? They're not going the other direction. They're not going
No.
to China. They're not
Or
going to
Russia
or Russia or South Korea or rather North Korea or any of these like
or
hellholes
Cuba or
or Cuba.
Venezuela.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The only thing Venezuela's got on us is they got a great weight loss program going on down there. 25% of your body weight lost since they converted to communism. That
Right.
has a tendency to do that, make you really skinny.
It does. It does. Okay, so I've got a few things that I want to talk about that's regarding Oregon. We have something tomorrow that an action item. So I am going, what it um, is there is a hearing tomorrow to stop, and the hearing is for House Bill 3119 to stop the diesel truck ban. And so the hearing, this has been brought by Shelley Beauchart Davis. And so I'm going to post a link here to submit testimony. Okay. And you can submit testimony even beyond the hearing. It's from what I understand. So that link that I just put in, tomorrow's is a direct link to submit written testimony submission form. Please click on this link and submit some testimony. Just, it doesn't have to be lengthy. Be polite. Don't cuss them out. Fill out the form. Write up a little text, and and say, I don't support this. It's really that simple to do. And because it is right now, we have a mandate for electric vehicles and for trucks, actually, excuse me, and some motorhomes even. And so it's sponsored by both Democrats and Republicans and scheduled for a hearing. I'm trying to look at when the hearing is going to be. I'm not seeing that on this. It's at 8 a.m. Tomorrow morning. So the hearing is at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. So there's a link on what I just put that you might even be able to attach that. I don't go into it, but the link that I put in there is to submit written testimony. Please submit something. Fill it. It's very simple to do. Very, very, very simple to do.
What possible justification can they have for this one?
Well, the Democrat legislators passed this,
So
and
we don't
it
like
is,
these.
well,
We don't
it's
like
to
these.
get to net zero. They want to get to net zero, Dawn. Unattainable. The glasses I'm wearing, the computers we're on, it's all coming from petroleum-based products. You're not getting it from plants, all from plants. So I wanted to mention that one. And then there is another one that House Bill 2176 is to repeal. It seeks to repeal the corporate activity tax. That would be awesome. And when Oregon passed the corporate activity tax, it actually destroyed Bi-Mart's pharmacy chain. And so because they operated on such a low profit margin,
Mhm.
It slams manufacturing, which is why manufacturing has been going down in Oregon, and it went into effect in 2020. This cat tax, and so it is. Uh, so this bill is to repeal it, and so this is something to follow. It is sponsored by Representative Jeff Helfrich, and it's a bill it's a bill watch, okay, to follow this. It's been introduced, and this would be an awesome thing, and because it's totally wrecking Oregon,
Mhm.
just really really wrecking Oregon. There's also a bill initiative petition 18, a ballot initiative would pave the way for rebirth of nuclear power in Oregon.
Ooh. Mhm.
So, Initiative Petition 18 would undo the prohibitions from the 1980s ballot measure 7. So, this initiative was filed on Monday, and it was, let's see, it would strike down there would be a federally licensed permanent disposal facility for radioactive waste uh, before any new plant could open. And then the other thing it would remove is that the development of any nuclear plant would be approved by statewide vote. And so voter placed those two requirements in 1980 into law, and the measure passed 53% to 47%.
Mhm.
And so Oregon has committed to, I'm reading from this Willamette Week article, Oregon has committed to reducing carbon emissions to 80% below the 1990 levels by 2050. And frankly, I would rather them now personally, instead of consuming our farm ground with covering, like they're going to do 10,000 acres of farm ground in Morrow County, which is adjacent to Umatilla County, where I live, with solar panels.
That is like insane.
It is insane, and it's not reliable. Let's have nuclear that is reliable.
So
This is the problem when you have intermittent energy sources. It actually screws up the whole electrical grid and makes it so it is not stable.
total
Um,
virtue signaling. What impact is the actions of Oregon going to have on the planet? It's just insane.
yeah.
Um,
And I think part of this is, I do know here in Umatilla County, one of our county commissioners has applied to be the test guinea pig here in Umatilla County for one of these newer, smaller footprint nuclear energy
mhm,
plants, and they're a much smaller footprint, and because this would be helping the data centers.
mhm.
So when we have data centers here in Umatilla County, so I don't know, and I think this bill is kind of related to that because it's wind, and then to hear then you have Trump, God bless Trump, kill the turbines. We're not funding any more
I
turbines.
love that.
And I said, wait a minute, let do that to solar as well.
Uh,
But wind energy is the most expensive energy that there is.
oh,
And
it
it's so
makes it,
heavily subsidized, and they say, oh, it's gotten so inexpensive, and you can't recycle any of that. So
and it's an ecological disaster on top of that. It's like
it is.
it's a bird killer. It's not to
Yeah.
mention the giant eyesore. Um,
Yeah.
it's pretty, yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty
Well,
amazing.
it is. I mean, if we made a list of all the things that Trump has done since he's just come into office, and you know what? It's been a week and a half.
Oh,
A
there was that.
week and a half.
I just heard her, and I forgot to mention this. That whole remember that law about the kind of light fixtures you could have
Oh,
that
yeah.
got overturned too.
Oh,
That was
yes.
like lost. Yes, I was like, that is good. So you don't have to buy these insane lights that cost a fortune, right?
Yeah.
It's just awesome. How about like leave us alone? Just leave us alone. Imagine
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah, I'm for that. I'm absolutely for that.
But
So I
we're guinea pigs, you know. We're just
just
guinea.
wanted to
We're
bring
just
those few things up.
those are great. Those are great things for sure.
Okay, well, hey everybody, share the message, and I'll be back on Friday. And you know what? It's just say your prayers for the confirmation hearings and for the votes. But more than say the prayers, contact your senators. Contact all the senators. You know, send them messages, hound their phones, and email, and say we want these people confirmed. This is our president's choices, and we want these people confirmed.
Yeah.
That's what we
Be,
need to help make
yeah.
America great again and make America healthy again.
Be active and be ye not afraid, as the saying says, to engage in those conversations with your neighbors as well. People bring up crazy stuff in a gentle way. Choose your battles, of course, but let's engage. For the first time, we could feel comfortable doing so. Even the media is starting to behave better.
Yeah.
So, of course, when your ratings are in the toilet like they are, I guess they got no choice. But yes, we are winning. There's no sense in us backpedaling anymore.
Hey, speaking of the media, more people like Joe Rogan goes, I think I'm going to go apply to be on the press. Different people, that are podcasters, it's all open. You can apply for a press pass, and
Yeah.
they're bringing them in.
Oh,
The
that's
press
just
pool is changing, and I
oh,
love it. I
yeah.
absolutely love it.
It's so awesome to see CBS, ABC, NBC, all those guys at the back of the line. You could ask the question in the order, just like everybody else. I just love it. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yep. All right, everybody. Good night. Thanks for being with us, and share the message. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it all around.
Let freedom ring.